One important thing to note before we start, this is a PC and Xbox exclusive. We'll talk more about that at the end of this video, but I wanted to let you know that up front so I don't get your hopes up with a glowing review, only for you to then be disappointed that you can't play this. Okay, let's do the review. One of the things I do when I start writing a review is I look up the developer. Who are they? Where are they based? What have they worked on previously? Etc. Death's Door is made by a studio called Acid Nerve, and plugging their name into the Google, I arrived at their website expecting all the splash images and the About section and the careers page listing a handful of job openings, etc. But no, I got none of that. Instead, I was treated to a single top page that read, quote, Acid Nerve is a two-person team from Manchester, UK, making independent games with artists from around the world. Now look, I know the whole one or two dudes made this thing doesn't ring out quite like it used to. It's a lot more common to see this sort of thing nowadays, and while making games is always difficult and making them solo borderline miraculous, I know that audiences these days are simply less impressed by the fact that just X number of people made this, as unjust as that reality is. Having said all of that, I was genuinely stunned to open up this website to see that this was a studio of two people. Typically, games from individuals or teams like this are full of compromise and jank, stuff you have to look past in recognition of just how few people made it. The defining characteristic of Death's Door is how polished it is, so much so that even before I knew that so few people had worked on this, I was going to base my review around how polished this game is. Every inch of Death's Door sparkles, from its clean stonework aesthetic, to its fluid movement, to its engaging level and puzzle design, to its terse but emotive writing, to its beautiful soundtrack that sets the perfect pace and mood at every moment. It's rare to find a game that clicks together as well as this, and to know that just two people created it, supported by some very talented artists, it's a huge achievement for this studio of two. I enjoyed Death's Door immensely, and I recommend it to you without hesitation, but there was one aspect that I think holds the title back, and it's kind of a big deal. The combat. Combat in Death's Door is by no means bad, but nor is it particularly good. It's always simple, at best functional, and at times a little frustrating since the lack of tools available to you limits both your expression and enemy design. Had Acid Nerve invested more deeply in Death's Door's combat, I think this would have been an unmissable indie darling. It really nails this sullen fairy tale vibe. You just love moving through this world and you love how it makes you feel while doing it. It's so frictionless. But without more compelling gameplay to back it up, Death's Door is going to leave more demanding audiences a little underwhelmed. For me, I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoyed it a lot, in fact. Let me show you why. Death's Door knows how to set the scene. It begins with our protagonist, a cute little crow dude, catching the bus to work. He's just like us, caught in the old 9-to-5 grind, except instead of making PowerPoints no one will read, he's out there collecting the souls of the dead. Past the security station, up the stairs, hang a right, and we get to Soul Farm HQ, a row of neatly arranged desks overseen by the fat controller in the back. Theirs is important work, ushering souls from one existence to the next, and everything seems like it's going great until suddenly something breaks, and that workflow is interrupted. No one is quite sure why souls can't reach the next life, and more than a few people seem intent on not finding out. You, on the other hand, are the curious type, and you set off on your adventure to make things right. The quest will take you to various kingdoms, accessible through mysterious doors that appear in your grayscale office. Like Dorothy, you'll smash cut into worlds full of brilliant colour, pulled straight from the pages of fairy tales. Mountaintops ruled by great yetis, a forest kingdom ruled by a frog, a wicked witch sealed away in a creepy castle. There's plenty of familiar grounding in these worlds. Thematically, you feel like you already know them, and you're just exploring the unique take that Acid Nerve have brought to each of them. This unique take is such a core part of what makes Death's Door great. Within each kingdom lies a villain who have their own mystery to solve. Why have they done the thing they've done? What led them to those choices? In each case, there's a moral angle to consider, or some emotional trauma, or something deeply logical that's worth grappling with. It's also really funny. At one point, I meet a guy whose head has been transformed into a pot. His name? Pothead. As we sit and chat, he offers me soup, straight out of his head. I politely decline. Death's Door will run you 8 to 10 hours. These interactions with other characters will only take up around 30 minutes of your playtime, max. but they loom very large because each engagement leaves you with something to consider, and I found the desire for the next interaction or the next reveal to be a powerful force pushing me through these kingdoms. The world design is always simple, placing a premium on visual clarity. In the overworld, space is continuous and connected, but within the 3 dungeon spaces, it's divided into rooms that you move between. There's always a lot of room to move around. The core of Death's Door's combat isn't swordplay, it's movement, and the developers were acutely aware of this, always giving you plenty of room to maneuver so that you never feel like the level design is working against you. There's nothing particularly elaborate about Death's Door's level design. It has a flat textured aesthetic that creates consistency between all parts of it, as though it was all chiseled from the same stone. It rarely surprises you with unique architecture, features, or vistas. It generally exists as a spacious canvas that's more about functionality than it is spectacle. When I think about space in Death's Door, I don't recall its visual properties. I recall its soundtrack, which is absolutely superb. Each of its tracks set the scene far better than any of the level design does. You can close your eyes and listen to it and you're immediately somewhere. A forest, a mountaintop, a decaying bureaucracy. You know how Banjo did that thing where its music was so distinctive it was almost visual? It isn't quite on that level here, but it's very good. Just as core as music is to world building, it's also crucial to gameplay and level design. The music is the custodian of this game's pace. It will tell you when shit is about to go down far sooner than events on screen will. It will also manufacture urgency where there otherwise wouldn't be any. At various points throughout the game, you're shuttled through these gauntlet-style sections where you have to defeat a large number of enemies as you work towards a location. These events feel almost timed, like you need to move as fast as possible or some door in the distance will close and you will have failed. But that's not the case. You can go as fast or as slow as you like. It's just that the music is kind of tricking you into operating at this pace because it's done such a good job of building you up to this point and it knows how to keep you there. Honestly, this happened to me 4 or 5 times throughout my playthrough, and I was always so impressed that the soundtrack had that much power over me and the way I was playing the game. Of course, not all of Death's Door is high intensity. Most of it is pretty chilled out, striking a good balance between combat, exploration, and puzzle solving. Exploration always feels so achievable. The levels aren't huge, and they don't offer myriad branching pathways. They're relatively small, and they give you just a few choices here and there. Exploring those optional routes will always reward you with souls, the currency you use to become more efficient in combat, or with vitality crystals that will increase your maximum health. Exploration is made all the more satisfying through the Metroidvania unlocks that become available at different points in your journey. Almost as soon as you start, you begin seeing impassable walls and unlit torches and hookshot grapple points, all of them quietly whispering that familiar refrain, "Come back later." Where these upgrades shine brightest is during the dungeons, where the simple but engaging puzzle design asks you to use these new abilities in different ways. You won't ever find yourself too stuck, but the puzzles all punctuate and pace the adventure so that you'll never feel like you're moving through things too quickly, nor getting too bogged down. That's one of the best parts of Death's Door, how aware it is of its own pace. It's very much about flow. I said earlier that Death's Door feels frictionless, and what I meant by that is you flow so seamlessly between its worlds, from room to room, from encounter to encounter. While doing so, the soundtrack is the puppeteer, cracking the whip or pulling back the reins without you even noticing that it's exerting so much influence over you. This is going to sound a little weird, but I actually think Death's Door is far more similar to Journey than it is to Hades. It's more about the feeling that it gives you than it is the experience of playing it, and a lot of that is to do with the fact that on the combat side of the equation, there's not a lot there. This sort of isometric 2D-esque dungeon crawling slasher, there are a lot of these games, a lot. It's a genre that typically lives and dies on the strength of its combat or its item economy, if it's a roguelike. Death's Door is not like that. The combat is actually the weakest part. It certainly feels very good to control your character and swing your weapon. From a controls perspective, there are no issues here whatsoever. Similarly, when it comes to things like hit registration or iframes, all of these things work perfectly. When it comes to the hygiene factors of combat, Death's Door ticks every box. The problem is ultimately one of depth, or more specifically, the lack of depth. You have a melee weapon which you can swing with either a heavy or light attack, but not in combination though, since the heavy attack is its own strike. You also have a number of range spells that have limited use, so they can't be relied upon during longer engagements, since you typically won't have a source of ammo nearby. You have a dodge button. That's about all. That's all you got. There's no block, no parry. There are no combos to mix up your heavy and light attacks. What you've been seeing on screen is exactly what you get the entire way through the game. It never changes or becomes more interesting. With so few tools, combat can start to feel quite repetitive. Every single engagement ultimately comes down to run up to the enemy, swing your weapon a few times, dodge away. That's it. And I mean it, that's exactly what it is for 8 to 10 hours. This actually has a really profound impact on enemy design. The way the game is made more difficult is by introducing enemies that have very narrow attack windows. Like, you have to get close to them, and you have enough time to swing twice, but on that third swing, they are gonna get you every time. So combat is this sort of bullfight, where you're dancing around the edge of an enemy's hitbox, so you can take your 2 swings and then quickly dash out, wait for them to take their 2 swings, and then you can go back in and repeat the process. I found this quite frustrating at times because this combat kind of felt like how you would play another game if you were trying to cheese it. Like if you were playing Hades or whatever, and you were really low on health and you didn't want to die, you might sort of commit to shorter combos and keep your distance, just baiting out enemy attacks to give you these safe attack windows. That's what the whole of Death's Door is, baiting attacks so you can then take your turn. There's a lot that could have been done to deepen this combat. For example, there are different weapons to choose from here, but they're all so similar to each other in functionality that it really doesn't matter what you use. There's also no dynamic weapon switching with a button press. You need to go into the menu and equip it. If you had more distinctive weapons and the ability to equip them on the fly, that would have added a lot. Similarly, things like blocks or parries or more advanced combos or more advanced maneuverability techniques, there's a lot that could have been done here, but none of that's there. So again, I do not dislike this combat, it definitely got the job done. It did not diminish my enjoyment of this game, but nor did it enhance it. If Death's Door is going to be a game that you love, it's probably not going to be for its combat, but that's okay, because there's more than enough to love here. Death's Door is a PC and Xbox exclusive. It's not coming to Game Pass. Now, this is a take that a lot of people won't agree with, but I actually don't have a huge problem with exclusives when there's a clear commercial reason for it. So Sony owns studios and they make games to sell PlayStations, and Xbox has studios and they make games to sell Xboxes and Game Pass subscriptions. Nintendo has studios and they make games to sell twice, first time on the Wii U and then again on the Switch for the same price. I get that exclusives are a driver of platform uptake and that these companies invest in exclusives because it helps them grow their ecosystem. Death's Door is one of those exclusive deals where I'm like, I mean, this is not coming to Game Pass, so this deal doesn't grow Game Pass subscriptions. It's just a straight up Xbox console exclusive, and no one is going to buy an Xbox to play Death's Door. It's a good game, I like it a lot, but it's absolutely nowhere near the territory of being a system seller. All this exclusive deal does is give Devolver some more cash and stop people on PS4 and Switch from playing this game. And now, after seeing my review, I think we can all agree that this is a game that at least belongs on the Switch. This is A-grade Switch fodder right here. So I'm bummed out by this deal because I think that PS4 and Switch owners got screwed when Xbox doesn't really see any upside. Having said all of that, it will probably come to other platforms later, maybe a year from now, I don't know. When it is available, either on the Xbox or PC release date, or later on the PS4 and Switch, I do recommend you pick this up. This is a wonderfully well put together game. Its combat will not thrill or challenge you, but its world, its characters, its story, and its soundtrack will all make you feel something. Transported, relaxed, tense, at times emotional. Death's Door is a cute little fairy tale adventure that probably isn't going to be your game of the year, but you'll be glad that you played it. I, for one, hope they make a sequel to this. I think this world is worth sticking with, and if the combat side of this game can be deepened, I think Death's Door 2 would be amazing. Anyway, that's my review. Congrats to Acid Nerve for making this. I still can't believe that a studio of 2 people made something this polished. That's crazy. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down so I know to do better for next time. If you enjoyed yourself, consider subscribing, and if you really enjoyed yourself, maybe consider hitting that notification bell so you never miss a video. You can see my patrons here on the left. They're awesome. They're amazing. If you want to join them, check out my Patreon page. Thank you again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.